Hey pilgrims, what's going on? Do you sometimes feel lost? You were promised that finding and progressing in faith would be something that would come naturally once you accepted Christ into your life. But maybe that didn't happen for you. You've got an idea of where you want to go, but no idea of how to actually get there. Maybe you've watched my other videos on how to find God's will for your life and you're still not making any progress. You need to know what to do next. By the end of this video, I'm going to teach you how to plot a course for your spiritual life by learning to discern at every turn. Hi, I'm Chad Torson with Directional Faith, and teaching you to discern at every turn, that's what I do here. That's my mission, that's my focus, is to help you find God's will for your life and how to apply it. And we don't do that just by taking the big steps in life, it's with the small steps. And that's where this idea of discerning at every turn comes in. That you need to be able to find God, not just in the big picture, but in your everyday life, in those small decisions to know exactly what to do. Making progress in faith can seem like climbing a really steep mountain. You look around at everybody else and they're just flying up the mountain and you seem stuck at the bottom. You don't even know where to begin. Or maybe you've started climbing and you feel stuck a little bit. You don't know where to go or what to do next. It's challenging because everyone else looks like they're getting holier by the minute and we're still kind of stuck in our old ways. We've been watching everyone else fly up the mountain. How do we do the same thing? What's their secret? What is the thing that can help us do that? Well, I'm the furthest thing from holy, but by the end of this video, I'm going to share with you the secret that has helped me do exactly that. Not that it's helped me to become more holy, but it's helped me to grow closer to God and to learn to discern His will for my life. But first, we need to look at what might be stopping you. What is getting in your way? What are the roadblocks that are stopping you from progressing up that mountain? There might be one of these 4 common reasons that have you stuck right where you're at. And it might begin simply as you don't know where to start. You're stuck at the bottom of the mountain. You can't even get going climbing the mountain if you don't even know where to begin. If you've never been rock climbing before, you wouldn't know what to do. You'd just be standing there wondering, what do I do? And be scared to take that first step. And for good reason, it's a big mountain to climb. I wouldn't recommend anyone to start climbing a mountain if you didn't know what you were doing. Or the second reason, you started, but you got stuck. You didn't know where to go next. You started climbing up the mountain, but you only got part of the way up there and you started to struggle. Because climbing a mountain isn't an easy thing to do. It not only takes strength, but it takes a lot of skill and knowledge to be able to make the right choices to get there. And it's the same thing in our faith life, which eventually leads us to the third reason. If you're not seeing progress, if you're stuck right where you're at, eventually you might give up. You start heading back down the hill because you're afraid of getting hurt. You're afraid of falling. And so it's easier to come back down the hill than it is to continue to go up. But you might change your mind and decide to start going back up the hill again. Or maybe you start going in a different direction and try to find a different path. And that leads us to the fourth reason why you might get stuck. And that's you keep changing direction and you're not making any actual progress. There's one direction that you need to go up that mountain, and that is up. But when you're going down and sideways to the left and to the right, and you're not always just heading straight up that mountain, you're not going to make the progress you need to continue to develop your spiritual life. And it's this last one that happens to most of us. It's the thing that gets most of us stuck and prevents us from continuing to progress in our spiritual lives. We're not able to really develop our faith or spirituality because we just go in so many different directions. We can't decide on one thing that one day we want to focus on a certain type of prayer. The next day we decide that we're going to read 1,000 books. We can't really figure out what direction that we're going to take to develop our spirituality. And what it all boils down to is not having a plan. If you don't have a plan for your life, including your spiritual life, how can you expect to make any progress? If you're not tracking where you're going or what you're trying to accomplish, how do you expect to get anything done? And if we want to learn to discern at every turn, it begins by having a daily prayer regimen that's going to help us make sure that we're staying on track with whatever our goals are. Whatever we feel God's will for our life is, we need to make sure that we're taking the right steps each and every day. Just remember, progress may be measured by the miles that you travel, but it begins with each small step that you take. And I've got one solution to all that, and if you've been around the channel lately, it's one simple prayer called the Daily Examen. I cover this in a lot more depth in another video, but briefly speaking, it's a daily prayer that you use to make sure that you're headed in the right direction. You actually examine your day. You find out where God was at in each moment, the struggles that you faced, what can you do to overcome the challenges that you're facing. You're going to bring the struggles you have and lay them at the foot of the cross, and you're going to start to plan how to overcome those things in the next day. And by taking these steps, you're going to make sure that you're headed in the right direction. Because if you're not paying attention, it's easy to get off course, or it's easy to start going in the wrong direction, and it's even easier to quit and just give up. But by seeing the small progress that you're making every day and towards that goal that you're trying to achieve, you're going to have that confidence that you need to continue to move forward in your spiritual life. You're going to find the things that work for you and the ones that don't, and you're going to see how God is moving in your life. The daily examen then is key to learning to discern at every turn. It's the key to making progress in faith. Stick around and I'm going to teach you the exact steps of the daily examen. But for now, let's talk about the 4 ways that the daily examen helps you overcome those 4 obstacles that we faced before. With the first obstacle, you didn't know where to start. And the great part about the daily examen is that it tells you where you are. Because in order to know where to start, you need to know exactly where you are right now. You can't plot a course until you know where you're starting from. You can't find the finish line until you found the beginning. And once we start heading up the mountain, eventually we'll get stuck. But the great part about the daily examen is it helps us get unstuck, because we're spending time to evaluate where we're at and figuring out a better course of action, or to make sure that we're headed on the right path. That this is the key to making sure that you don't get in those situations where you find yourself stuck. Or that if you do find yourself stuck, you're able to see a way out of it, that you don't feel like there's no way to progress forward. You can look around and find a path around whatever obstacle is slowing you down right now. And so we won't even face the third obstacle, where we started to give up because we didn't feel like we were making any progress. And we started headed back down the mountain because we didn't see the fruits of it. By doing the daily examen and reviewing it and looking back at our journals, we're able to see the small progress that we make on a daily basis, that we're not just spinning our wheels without any real purpose. We can see the progress that we're making even in the smallest ways. And it's that little bit of progress that eventually adds up to the great milestones that we're trying to achieve. And with that little bit of progress each day, it leads us to the 4th obstacle, which is where we kept changing direction because we weren't sure where to go. By having the daily examen and a solid prayer routine where we're examining our day and paying attention to the direction that we're going, we're not going to get lost. We're going to overcome that 4th obstacle of changing direction too many times, because we're going to make sure that we're following the path that God has laid in front of us. Because discerning at every turn is about being mindful of the direction that your faith is headed. It's about having directional faith. Get it? You can't wander through life and just expect to make progress in your faith. Just like you can't expect to wander up a mountain and eventually make it to the top. You need to have a concrete plan and idea of how to get there. You have to be intentional with every step of your faith life, just as climbing a mountain requires you to pick every foothold and every hand grip. And if you want to learn to pray the daily examen, click on this next video. I'm going to walk you through it step by step. At the end of it, I'm even going to give you a link where we can pray it together. So I want to thank you for stopping by. Thanks, and God bless.